saying pause. Let's switch it on.
It's a new Zoom feature because there's bots in here. You need to still, I think, start the recording, Riza.
Yeah, I think it's recording now. Yeah. You see it?
Yep, it's on. Thank you.
So I was just going to highlight, here's some links down here. I'm actually adding a YouTube link here. Please check out everything down there. There'll be a lot more to this site. There used to be a much larger site, and I'm actually reworking all of it. And we'll be re-releasing it around CES. So that's probably another thing to just point out at the top before I forget, which is I'll be doing an event at CES. There's going to be some XR elements to it. This will be all Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And at 9 p.m. this turns into a party. It's a giant, like 10,000 square foot space. And there'll be demos and all sorts of things. And I'll be essentially at CES from before it starts to after it ends, taking meetings and hanging out with people. So if you're there, please reach out to me. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you my last project, just to show you, just kind of get your head around it. This is called IR Engine. This was a company that I started it was originally called Ethereal Engine. I sold it to another company called Infinite Reality that's still doing it to this right now. And we essentially built high quality spaces on the web, really with a focus on building high quality human representations that we'd stream from volumetric recordings, or actually digital characters, which are like avatars powered by AI. So it's pretty cool. You can check it out. It's completely open source. I'm a huge fan of open source. And the two things I really wanted to show you is it's open source and it's web-based. And that's something we focus really heavy. I focus my career extremely heavy on, is the power of the web. You know, the web, you know, as probably Doc has said, the web is considered a human, access to it is considered a human right in many countries. It is a great leveling field against the walled gardens around us. And I very much believe that people discount the web's ability to offer like ultra high quality experiences on par with native. And really the revolution in the browser allows for that. This is just showing that I can build something on par with Unity, Unreal, Blender, super high-end 3D applications right on the web. So, and that really goes forward, I think, into AI. You can run AI on the web. You can run AI through the web. One thing that I've been focused on. Ubiquity Assistant. This is something we've been playing with. We played with at Infinite Reality and Ethereal Engine. This is one of our healthcare customers. Is actually embodied avatars, embodied agents. There's contexts where actually taking an LLM, taking a bot, taking a RAG, and extending it in an avatar makes a lot of sense. And there's places where it doesn't make a lot of sense. This is what they call a Ready Player Me avatar. It's a very popular avatar maker. And one thing that we really like about it is it's cartoonish. It does not try to cross the uncanny valley. It's very Pixar-like. And but it still does a whole bunch of conscious and unconscious things that you don't just get from text or voice and video when interacting with an AI agent. We have a lot of subconscious triggers of body language, eye contact, things like that you can replicate. Greetings. You can replicate in with an avatar. This was made about a year ago. I figured I'd show this one because it's actually been publicly shown. But Infinite Reality and myself, we have much more advanced avatars than this now that we'll be showing soon. But I just wanted to give you guys a taste of, this is a healthcare and physical therapy, occupational therapy specialist. But she's designed to be a general doctor. The more modern version can do much, much more. But I'll just show you this real quickly. Ubiquity Assistant. Let's see. Occupational therapist. I am Ubiquity Assistant. Tell me about yourself. Greetings.
I am Ubiquity Assistant, a physical and occupational therapist with a passion for helping individuals heal and regain their optimal physical function. I hold a doctorate in physical therapy, a master's in occupation.
Yeah, she's a bit of a you can see she's introducing her background. She's a little anthropomorphized. That was something we were playing around with. She has like a history, she has a name, also all sorts of things. We can and I've been experimenting with many more. There's different classifications of these embodied agents. Like for instance, some are kind of twins of people. Some are just like they're like Siri. They don't really have a personality. They're just agents for others, and others are full-on synthetic characters or chimeras of characters. So there's really an emerging embodied agent, digital being kind of periodic table of speciesization of these types of things that we've been playing around with actively, and I haven't seen really anybody bring up around at this group. I wanted to share. And as I showed before, this is actually a open source project, but still like a heavily funded one. It's like 55 everyday contributors. I think the full contributor list is in the hundreds. Something very interesting about it is I actually pushed for the CPAL license. I wanted this project to be open source, but we had a lot of trouble with the MIT license, and people being afraid, investors being afraid that it was going to get ripped off and essentially fully white labeled and competed against. So I looked at many public licenses, and one that always pulled out to me was the Common Public Attribution License. It's called the Splash Screen License, also, or like the NASCAR license, which essentially is you have to show the major projects that your project is actually based on. So just like Unity and Unreal in the game engine space, in the video game space, it's very traditional for there to be splash screens of the technologies, whether that be NVIDIA or AMD, the game engine, the publisher, the studio, the artist, all of those go into splash screens as the game boots up. And that is a well-respected tradition that's not really in other classes of software, but it's something that we put in this game engine. The CPAL license doesn't just have to be a splash screen, it can be other things as well. But this is something that allowed us to be open source while also retaining our brand identity. And it also allowed us to become to maintain being an open collective. So we're all the way going back to when I founded this, and it was called Ethereal Engine. We were an open source collective, and we actually collected a ton of money through small and medium donations, almost $500,000. And we essentially collected it and distributed it publicly through Open Collective. Did not have to become a 501c3, which I've heard talked about here. And it was extremely efficient, and Open Collective takes about 10% off the top for administration, collateral, insurance, all sorts of taxes, all sorts of things. Yeah, I found it to be an extremely expensive, extremely inexpensive and efficient way to collect and spend money. I've looked at Patreon, a whole sorts of other platforms that are going this direction, and we just something I wanted to highlight to this group, that I'm always encouraging people who want to build open projects that way. Yeah, as I said, this is all open source. You guys should check out kind of all my current and previous projects. And I've continued that. I've actually got Companion Intelligence as an open source project. We have not raised much money yet because I haven't really put any horsepower behind it, but I've gotten the clearance to do it. And this is one way that I'm hoping to build a community around our open source core. I could show, I kind of like went through a debate. I could show you guys, I could repeat stuff that's already in videos, but I wanted to share with you, this, I do have a YouTube channel, if you guys want to see what the product looks like, and made some commercials. I have other things on how I've tried to tie this into spatial computing as well, which I was about to show you. So this is kind of our old site that I'm reworking, and it shows essentially how to come in, download all of our apps, and then this is a high level of what the app looked like. It's all being reworked right now, but essentially you connect all of your services through one of these three ways, and then you essentially get a view into your digital memory that you can essentially go through as a list, as a map, as a grid, as a feed, and essentially search, sort, tag, and then essentially make these things called saved searches, which are essentially queries that you can bookmark and rerun, and even get alerts when the results of these queries on your digital memory change. And it actually has a ton of use cases, hundreds of use cases we found, I think, that people have used this for. We had this up and running for about 3 years. We had about 10,000 users, really in the life logging community. And in the last year of me doing this full time, before I really went fully into spatial computing, was we worked on a time machine. So this is a Magic Leap. It's one of the early augmented reality headsets. This was all built in Unity, and you could connect to this Unity app on this headset and run a steampunk time machine, and a portal would show up with this control panel, and you could dial in either time or space. So you could grab the abacus and dial in year, month, day, time, hit the button, and it would show you where you were at that time, where in space you were at that time. Or you could grab the joystick and control the map, go north, south, east, west, to zoom in, zoom out with the buttons, and control space, hit the big red button. It would show you all the times you were at that space. And that was a virtual experience. It was like a time palantir that would go into your house. And this was designed to kind of be a virtual interactive scrapbook. We built this like 6-7 years ago. The graphical power was not nearly what it is now in mixed reality, but we used some cool copper and brass shaders and a little bit of art to elicit the dream alive. And this was all running off my digital memory. Sorry, my tab suspender's freaking out here, but you get the idea. And go check out this website if you want to see more. We played around with conversational interfaces. If you said the sentences correctly to our speech to text engine, it would actually show you results automatically. And I also deeply played with, here's our augmented reality version. So you could go out in augmented reality and see these ant trails you left behind. If you looked down in our augmented reality view, you'd see a 3D map with a trail terminating right under your feet of how you got to your current spot. And we ran a bunch of computer vision models. So I collected tons of images and videos on myself, thousands, terabytes of images and videos on myself. And I could run facial recognition, scene understanding, object recognition. This is an early wireframe of the interface we built. And I'm actually working on rebuilding right now, but it's essentially a capture and process system, just like you would see with Apple Intelligence, that does a lot of computer vision and metadata tagging of photos and videos. You can run this yourself. So there's more going on. I'm building essentially a personal RAG. A lot of stuff I want to premiere at CES. So some of it I'm kind of developing behind the scenes, and I plan probably at CES to just release all of it out on GitHub. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of show off this is some work I've done over the years. Yeah, I'm continuing to do.
Liam, thanks so much. That's fantastic. We are really excited. I'm looking at plans, trying to figure out, am I going to drive up or am I going to fly? But I'm going to try and get to CES. And I haven't booked accommodation yet, but hey, I know it's super pricey.
I just wanted to say one last thing, which is I'm essentially I'm working on this about 50% of the time, and about the other 50% of the time, I'm actually building commercial rags. That's to really keep my feet on the ground and bring in revenue and actually like learn the state of the art and see what the problems are out there. So if you guys are building commercial rags out there, I would love to help. Please reach out to me if you want to build rags commercially. I'm also looking for help. So lots
Yeah.
of going on in the space.
Well, look,
Yeah.
feel free to use the PyOS as the base for your RAG.
Yeah.
And the areas we're researching into distributed RAG. We're also researching into confidential compute, so you can share your data in a way that it's still private. And so for the area of vector search, confidential vector search, this is going to be super important. You raised a couple of questions. I want to ask them, and then hands up. I see Bry's hands up first, but some questions. How do we encourage / force vendors to allow us to repatriate our data? Thoughts around that?
It's not easy. I've been essentially, I wish Doc was here. I've been essentially using like GDP. I've talked to a bit about this at IIW, researching like systems inside of a GDPR. So in GDPR, there's this idea of a backup service that's written into the precedents. A backup service is like a company that will collect your data on your behalf, and it's essentially only doing that or only working for the user. And if you meet that legal definition and you hit them over the head in Brussels, you can force the data out of like Facebook. You can get all the API access scopes.
I think we should double down on that. I think we should also include Richard Witt and structure it around being a data fiduciary and kind of formalize that approach where you send a letter to the vendor that's holding your data, saying, "Hey, I'd like to repatriate my data," and do it under the auspices of GDPR. I think that's a great way of progressing.
There is this very kind of, for the nerds that have actually been doing this for a long time, I've been kind of, I'm going to throw some shade right here. There's been this like kind of this attempt called the Data Transfer Project, which was this essentially project by Google to satiate a lot of politicians who were very, very cross with them. And I think it was Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, and even Apple came out and said, we're going to start an open source project called the Data Transfer Project. I'm having the hardest time pasting it in here. And open up all of our APIs and make it easy for you to take your stuff out of OneDrive and put it into Google Drive, right? And in my opinion, it was all a big fake, all a big punt. They brought in essentially a ton of people, and they built way too much process, I think on purpose to slow the thing down. And then essentially after all the heat had gone to the regulators attention went to AI, they've quietly killed this project essentially, and everything it was set out to do has essentially stopped. And there's nobody out there. Like, I don't want to spend my career building like data collection, data integration technologies, but I have to do it because nothing exists out there that does this.
Right.
For good reason, because the Fortune 1000 doesn't want it to exist. They don't want their walled gardens to be bored through at all. And the regulators have tried to make them do it, and every time they do it, they do some half-hearted attempt at the IEEE or ISO or W3C, or or they build some crap foundation like this, and they don't actually do it because they can't be trusted to do it. They're not incentivized to do it. And a lot of what I spent 3 years at LifeScope doing, what it used to be, Companion Intelligence used to be called, doing, what we were doing was building data integration, just the ETL systems, just an insane amount of that. Not working on the AI, not working on the interface, not working on actually growing it as a company, but actually just getting the data. And it's huge percentage of like my planned capital expenditure is going to be just getting and maintaining the pipes to the data. So yeah.
So there's a company called Verida, VERIDA. They were introduced to us by Cam Gear. Cam's not on the call, but they're an Australian company, and they are building a platform for repatriating your data. There was another company, Steve, I wonder if you remember who it was. They were at IIW, and Doc Searles had them in Project VRM demoing to us a personal AI, and they said they created about 20 different connectors so you could suck in your data from Spotify, from Netflix, from all the various vendors, and it powered your RAG system.
There's about, by my count, about 20 people doing it, some better than others. No one's doing it open source. No one is seriously attempting to actually attack the backup service provision in GDPR and force and keep, because the problem is getting and keeping the scopes to the API scopes and the scrape granting permission and all this stuff that you need to actually go out and grab this stuff from where it lies.
And resync every so often and get notifications when there's been significant changes. And
it's a huge, and I've tried to do it alone, and I've just realized I never will. Even with $1 billion, I never will. And it's going to take a lot of educating people on why this needs to go into regulation and be forced down the throats of these companies. So it's one of the things I wanted to bring to this discussion.
Fantastic. I mean, that could be a mission goal for 2025. We could maybe assemble a whole work group around that,
and to actually fund in reality something that actually does serve the public interest. And so these fake organizations, like you said, something that actually has, a culpability to the public and so forth. Yeah.
Sure. So let's take some questions from the audience. I see Bry's hands up first, but please put your hands up so there can be a queue of these questions. Bry, off you go.
Yeah, wonderful stuff, and especially excited about the spatial aspect of it. How much have you applied temporal RAG? And then when you talk about kind of memory, I'm just curious, what RAG techniques have you employed or next things?
I am building the same thing like 7 different ways right now, and all have it's just the same thing over and over again. Playing with, I'm currently wiring together like multiple multimodal databases at once, storing the same thing a bunch of different ways, querying it and coming back and seeing what happens, essentially, because there is no precedence on this stuff. And most of the information of people, most of the prescriptive information out there that people I've found is wrong. So, and I've been kind of like focused on the open source tooling only, and asking my friends about who actually are paying for these like crazy enterprise licenses for crazy cutting edge proprietary stuff out there, how it performs. And long story short, it's all a trade-off. I think you're going to have to store things a bunch of different ways, for a bunch of different use cases. And the proprietary stuff ain't that good. It's all smoke and mirrors. So it's from what I understand.
Yeah.
And most of it is just a bunch of the open source stuff glued together with like a very nice interface. So, yeah.
And then how do you want to connect on the commercial RAG stuff? Because I'm
on Discord. I can drop my email. Like, I'm around. Yeah, here.
Yeah, cool.
I'm gonna
Fantastic. Okay, we got a couple more hands up. Matt, off you go.
Hey, Liam, that was really cool. Thank you for that super interesting work that you're involved in. My ears perked up around the embodied agents that you showed off there. I'm just curious if you've noticed a difference in the behavior of agents that are embodied versus the agents that are not embodied.
So it depends. We've been working on stacks that essentially will take any chatbot, add voice and video to it, and then you can either have you can have like the RAG or multiple RAGs drive the character with like this kind of director system. If you ever look at InWorld, they're like they have a lot of great documentation and video. NVIDIA ACE, if you've heard of NVIDIA ACE, there's some of the there are people out there in embodied agents right now that actually have a ton of really great papers and documentations that explain what happens when you wire these things up, where they're pretty transparent. And I've used that as kind of I've used them and a few other research papers to drive it. When you do have the RAG drive the characters, it's often the most like super expressive. It's essentially the system. I could get into, like, I could start giving like a 25-minute lecture on animation mixtures and sequencers and things like that. But and then like eye contact, there's like a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. I really the biggest change is especially in certain use cases how people react, and like how young people react, really react. You see like a huge dividing line around 30-35, where people under 30-35 are like so into it, and people over it are just over that in the age are kind of weirded out by it. And the same thing with the I've had so many teams like NVIDIA and Unreal are focused on metahumans and like really crossing the uncanny valley, and how there's like this thing with like older men and younger people like it, are cool with you trying to cross the uncanny valley, and everyone else isn't. I could give a whole talk on that, of like how crazy that stuff is. But
Yeah.
Super.
I hope that answered your question. But like,
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Okay, so we got a couple more. We got Don Duval next. Don, where are you? You need to unmute.
Don dropped. Wait.
Don dropped.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry about that. I had to set permissions. I'm in the same realm as far as knowledge management. I want to know, when you're developing your multimodal database, how are you structuring like ontologically, as far as like the taxonomy of like how are you choosing what data you're collecting to put in your databases?
Yeah, twofold. One is everything gets collected as raw form first and stored, and is totally accessible at any time. So like the JSON that comes off the API database, the text that's scraped, that's all stored kind of in the source format. And then also it's replicated again, essentially into these 5 tables. These are just like kind of functional, heuristic, logical tables that I use in my mind. That's where they came from. I built this thing for me. They're very close to what you would see at schema.org. They're like well understood Western English like ontologies. And they have a very nice like correlative behavior, like I am here talking on my MacBook, making a video, with all of you people, at my house in Culver City. Those are people, places, times, all of that fits pretty neatly into the tables describing this very moment. There is always drawbacks. I just kind of like, I built the system so that like I could theoretically swap out the ontologies without much issue, add more, change them, things like that. And the new version I'm working on is even more flexible. But I just kind of had to start somewhere. So I went with what was prescient. I went with something that was pretty relational and normalized, because it just collapses the problem space a bunch. So and then it can be walked as it can be walked as a graph in a normalized way. So those were things I was really looking for. since then I've added like, vector store and, Lucene based full text search and, all sorts of things. But it's, yeah, there's going to be no right answer. And this is like one of those things that when I was in the metaverse standard space, everybody thought they had the right answer of what the metaverse was going to be, what the data shape, what the primitives were going to be, what the protocols were going to be, what the security model was going to be. And I'm like, okay, why are we not we should make benchmarks and test beds. Everybody agrees on a benchmark or benchmarks for a certain problem. Then we have a test bed. Everybody submits their platonic shape of their solution into the test bed, and then we can drag race these things. And then we're not arguing position. I don't want to argue position papers or vote on a council. I want to look at benchmarks on everything, and that's performance, that's features, that's user acceptance benchmarks. I don't want to, like, if I'm reading position papers on architectures, because I see that way too much in like anyways, I forgot where I even started with this, but that's
no, benchmarks are the great leveler. Okay, yeah. So that was an answer to sort of the question on the ontology. I was going to challenge Don to ask a question and not use the word ontology, but
I mean, I can. I have a second question. So
okay.
When he first was speaking about there not being a unifier between the companies interpreting users.
Don, your audio is breaking up. We're hearing crackles.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
No, it's completely gone now. Don, why don't you correct your audio while Zachary poses the next question? I think your Bluetooth headset might have lost battery. Okay, Zachary, you're up.
Liam, amazing, really amazing stuff. It always blows me away when somebody speaks and shows their stuff. I'm like, we're all headed to the same direction. It's
everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah. Very cool. I have a couple just off the cuff questions. So one quick question about volumetric. There's been a big problem with volumetric capture and streaming to the web, right? I would love to this doesn't have to be long, but just I would love your thoughts on that. And then the second question is, in capturing your timeline, capturing data from outside of your ecosystem, platforms, et cetera, and then capturing your own multimodal data throughout your life, create your world model, right? And when Fei Li and Gemini and what they're doing, what Google's doing with the world models, I'm interested if that's factoring into your thought process.
Yeah, I've been. Say that second part again about the.
Sure. With the timeline structure, right? All your multimodal data, it starts building your world model, right? It's literally all of these engines that are starting to emerge. They call it the universe in a transformer, right? But it builds the universe, right? It creates your own generative world, so to speak. So I'm wondering if your thought processes are connecting to that in some way.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially like one of the things that got me here is I was one of the first people who was fortunate enough to try Google Earth VR. Have you ever tried Google Earth VR? And I was essentially I was shocked at how incredibly good it is. If you guys haven't tried it, you should definitely try it. They're about to re-release it. Google is, because they're going back into XR right now. I just immediately was like, how the hell do I do scrapbooking in this? How the hell do I actually place my photos to this backdrop and things like that? And essentially I found out I could recreate it in Unity with map SDKs and all sorts of things like that. And I found a few people who've still working on that. And there will be proprietary versions of a universe your universe that you go into. They'll be very spatial and visceral and immersive and conversational and all those things. Google's working on it. It's called Project Astra. And there's other companies working on it too. Apple Intelligence, the next version of Apple Intelligence by all accounts, was going to be pretty crazy. And I think I'm trying to like break down the walls, because I very much think that there'll be about 2 or 3 companies that are going to deliver deliver experientially, and from a data richness perspective on a level that just will outpace everyone else. And that's how, like, that will be one of the things that keeps people in these moats, in these proprietary moats.
Okay.
It's just a better experience.
Let's make Steve's the last question before we do updates. We've got 12 minutes left on the call. 11. Steve, off you go.
Well, have you thought about things like collaborative city planning and like having virtual spaces, in other words, different, potential plans enacted, and then having citizens go in there and use and tag up the whole environment using your approach and so forth, something like that?
Yes, and there's a bunch of stuff out there, essentially, like that I've been able to, that the volumetric, that the spatial community has already made, that especially with data tagging, that could be applied outside of like an academic context and things like that. So yeah, wanted to send this here, by the way. This is actually this is the volumetric tool chain I worked on, by the way, since somebody asked about that, and you can check it out. No, it's being rewritten right now, but there is people massively underestimate like just what's possible graphically and with computer vision right now. The software has gotten really insane, even inside the browser. It's a long talk, but yeah.
Okay, Liam, thank you so much. That's fantastic. Thanks for giving us an insight into your world, your virtual world. And it seems like there's a lot of alignment between what you're working on, your aspirations, and what we're working on here. The representation of our avatar is kind of primitive at the moment, but it shows a level of quality that we're hope to gain. But it'd be great to be able to have that running in the browser rather than having the visual representation and the audio being generated server side. It really needs to be offloaded to the client device. So fantastic. I'm excited to see what you're doing, and we should explore maybe setting up a work group around the data repatriation. I think that's super important. You're right. There's no one doing it in an open source manner. Verida is a for-profit company, and the company that came to demo at IIW or Project VRM in earlier this year, they're also a for-profit company, and they were going to repatriate your data, but then for the purpose of reselling it to other vendors, which is not what we want to do. We want to repatriate your data so that you can own and then grant entitlements to other companies, but you're in control of that data. Okay, thank you so much. Look, it's fantastic that people are turning up for the last Kwaai Day of the year. We are prepping the annual report for Kwaai, and that annual report is it's actually a statutory obligation. Any for-profit, any non-profit needs to create an annual report. So we got that in construction. Thank you so much for all those that have contributed to it. There's still time if you want to send me something, a summary of what you've been working on. We'll include that. I'll be working on it over the weekend. I'm going to share with you perhaps a recollection of the year. You remember the January 5th meeting? This was me returning from the Cape Town trip. I'm just going to scroll through it. So here's Matt saying, "Hey, we're prepping for our Kwaai Summit." Well, we're back here. We're prepping for our Kwaai Summit in March, and we ended up holding a pretty good Kwaai Summit. And in March, here we actually On the 15th, we actually broadcast direct from the show floor, and that was kind of chaotic, but we did it, and it was fun. We kicked off the Kwaai beta program, and here you see Thomas Box giving a presentation. Here we introduced Doc as the Kwaai Chief Intention Officer. Doc sends his apologies. He's traveling until the new year for various Christmassy holiday getaways, so he's gone. We then launched the EMEA chapter, but we had Dave Grantham come in, give a lightning talk on Cryptid, but we launched the EMEA chapter. Larry Namer, the founder of E-Entertainment, who's now a board member, he came and gave a presentation. Do you remember Marcus Petri-Liner? So talking about one of the early projects for repatriating your data called My Data Global. Liam, it's worth checking this guy out and checking out this project. It's another failed project, but it had noble intentions. Yes, this is Debbie talking about the Kwaai beta program. Doc gave a presentation. We had Ian Henderson on talking about intent casting. We had Christian Randieri talking about the EMEA chapter. Gosh, we're going through it. Okay, JD Miller, Sujet Nair, the Beacon protocol. We still, it's a very inspiring, battle-tested protocol. It's now running at massive scale, and we're going to make that the basis of our peer-to-peer, the intent casting infrastructure, the sort of top layer of Kwaai.net. We actually have joining Kwaai from this team, from Sujet Nair's team, is Shweta Rao. She's going to be joining us in January, and she's worked on the Beacon protocol, so that's going to be super exciting for us to have Shweta's experience. Do you remember Eve Mailer? Eve Mailer was the CTO of Forge Rock, and now she's running her own consulting practice. She came to give us a talk. Do you remember Sol Lee? Thanks, Matt, for inviting Sol to give a lightning talk. Ruth gave a talk on personal AI for education. That was fantastic. We then had Michael Glavich, who's from the AI 2030 community, and he came to give a talk. We had Steve Wilson from Exabeam. We had Angel Sanchez, who's one of our big patrons. You know, Angel Sanchez has contributed over $1 million. And the way he's done it is he donated to us 6-7 engineers. I think on average it's been about 6, and he's covered the payroll of those engineers for over a year. So thank you so much to Angel. Hinda Rube spoke. AZ spoke, our very own AZ. Thank you so much. Richard Witt telling us about his new organization, GliaNet, but also he launched a book called Reweaving the Web. That's a must read. You should get yourself a copy. Greg Spector gave us a one-on-one on how project management's going to work in Kwaai. And thank you so much, Greg, for your leadership. I know you were the sole person on the product management call this morning. Apologies for all those stay abed folks that didn't show up. But thanks, Greg, for being there. Rafi Krikorian. Yeah, Rafi Krikorian, CTO of the Emerson Collective. Emerson Collective is run by Steve Jobs' widow. And so this is a funding organization that we are hoping to get closer to. And Rafi Krikorian came to give a talk. And then Doc gave another talk. And then Scott Glosserman, founder of Gather. He is, in fact, in my early days, I helped build the platform for Gather. But this is a platform that we should take another look at for Kwaai. in terms of crowdsourcing audiences. Rika Nakazawa, who's a senior executive with NTT, and she's now a Kwaai board member, came to give a talk. Sam Johnson heads our PiOS team, was a guest speaker. He's also a board member. And Larry Namer, repeat offender, came back on meeting 62. We're closing up the year. Diego came to talk about the work that the AI Life Sciences group is doing and the fantastic progress of their model for allowing a patient to query an AI model about the adverse drug side effects of their prescription drugs. Jeff Easley from the Responsible AI Institute spoke, and then our board all presented. We had a board election, and they all came to say a bit about ourselves. The great Bruce Schneier, American cryptographer, world leader in cybersecurity and AI trust, came to give a talk again. And then Daryl Sarant, thanks so much. He's been researching into subquadratic neural networks. Matt Bird, CEO of ESG. Ben Moskowitz, Consumer Reports. And then I gave a wrap up of the year in our 70th meeting, and we haven't posted the meetings for Chris Ye, the co-author of Blitzscaling, and Faye Arjomandi, CEO of Mimic. And Faye came to lunch a few days ago. We had a lovely lunch here at our house, and then I'm going to post today the 73rd and final call of the year. Okay, let me stop sharing there. I want to thank you all for being Kwaai members, being dedicated. Look at all the work we've done. Gosh, we had 50 public meetings. Our work groups got 700 hours worth of work group videos. And that's a testament to the dedication of all of you and your commitment to the mission to democratize AI and to build personal AI. Gosh, okay. Anybody else want to say some final words? I'm going to go hoarse here. Not sure if are we going to have they say don't call it an after party, the idea exchange meeting. Who's up for that? Okay, yes. Jonathan's up for that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, right. We're going to do the after party. I'll post the link here. We don't have Myra to post the link. But okay, anybody else want to say a few words before we wrap up?
Thanks for all your hard work.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Thanks so much.
That's right.
Ted, we miss you. Ted Cohen, I hope your holidays have gone well. Normally we'd come and hang with you at New Year's.
I'm heading to Tulsa for my AI course that I'm teaching.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
It's one of the signs of the end of the universe when I'm your professor.
Are you easy A?
To make it hard.
Okay. Greg, your hand's up.
Just a quick call out to the engineers on the call today. Would love to get some feedback on our spec for the MVP. If you have time, please Slack me. We'll schedule a time to go over it.
Fantastic.
Doesn't have to be this year.
Okay, yeah. And Daniel Wilson, Lee Ambrosa would be a great speaker on your podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had wanted to speak with him the other day, but we've been so busy. So yeah, he's definitely on the page for that. So in fact, I'm trying to line up everything and be clear with everybody about who and when I have people on, because the beta program and other things, there's things that we can talk about that don't really have to discuss that too much directly. And Rika had agreed to come on. Doc had agreed to come on, but I've got to wrangle him and his wife. That's kind of tricky. Yeah. And but I really want to do this with the blessing and planning from you, Riza, because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I want to make sure that I'm not just trying to fill time. I'm trying to be tactical here for us and make sure that we deliver something that drives impact on the show for Kwaai.
Well, we need to develop a kind of a marketing plan, a campaign for the summit to drum up sponsorship as well as attendance for the summit. And so let's offline talk about that and
Definitely. And as a side note, I got to mention this. Like I'm a web developer. I don't know how the site's built, but I would really love to help kind of fix the homepage to make it way more clear for people.
Yeah,
who are coming
the site
in.
sucks. I built it in a weekend on.
I can, but I do this. I do this a lot, and people pay me to do it, and I would be happy to do this for free. All you got to do is just connect me to your, as a contributor, and I can go in and do
Greg,
stuff
you heard him. Greg's looking for building out that team.
Yeah, I work with other nonprofits too in building their sites, and honestly, it's a pleasure. So
fantastic.
I'll reach out to you, Daniel, in a second on Slack.
Thank you so much. Actually, and you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn too, because that'll actually get my attention with the ding. Slack, I admittedly am very lax on and don't get to enough, but feel free to hit me up there as well. We'll do that. Absolutely. Thank you for everything, everybody. I just want to say that this is an incredible team. I've been here as a sponsor for most of this year and have watched this grow so quickly. So great work, Riza, leading all this and putting all your hard work and energy into this and driving your wife nuts, I'm sure, going all around the country and the world. So everybody's put a lot in here. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you on the Idea Exchange call next. Okay, keep well. Thanks.